Hi, I'm Todd Jones, host of the podcast Press Box Access. Here's a clip from my interview with Tim Kurkjian. Baltimore Orioles manager Earl Weaver greeted Tim with a few choice words at their introduction.
When I first started covering, I would get to go sit next to Earl Weaver on the bench, sometimes for an hour at a time, sometimes by myself for 30 minutes. And I would pick his brain, and it was the greatest experience of my life. Of course.
Okay, give us a Weaver story that you recall.
Well, there are a million of them, but the first one is a bad one. It's going to require a bad language here, but
That's fine.
Needs to be said. Dan Shaughnessy took me to the ballpark. I'm 23 years old, and I'm covering baseball really in the major leagues for the first time. And he introduces me to Earl Weaver for the first time. He says, "Earl, this is Tim. He's going to be covering the team occasionally when I'm off for a day." Earl Weaver looks at me, third greatest manager of all time, looks at me and says, "Fuck you, Tim," and walks away. And I almost started to cry right there. And Dan looks at me and goes, Don't worry. That's what Earl does with all the people that he likes. And I say, likes? He just met me 3 seconds ago. Earl was the greatest, Todd. He was the greatest. And the only danger with Earl was he was so good after a game that all the beat writers would go down with an idea, this is what I'm going to write about. But every once in a while, I didn't have a great idea on how to write this game story. And I would go downstairs and say, well, Earl is going to carry me. He's going to carry all of us. He's going to give something that's so quotable or so interesting or so crazy. That's what I'm going to write about. That was the only danger with Earl. But the other great story, the only other one you need to know about Earl is not all of his players loved him, but he was great at what he did. And Earl could be a little bit rude and crude at times, but I loved every bit of it because he was an old school baseball guy. So he had a player on his team named Pat Kelly years ago, long before you, Todd. Who was
I remember Pat Kelly.
Of course you do. So Pat Kelly is an outfielder on the Orioles. And while still playing, he has made this decision to join the ministry. So he waits for the proper moment.
Wait. He's going to join the ministry?
While he's still an outfielder on the Orioles, okay?
Okay.
So he's waiting for the perfect moment, the most poignant moment to go tell Earl about his big plans now for his life. And he finally gets the moment. He goes to Earl and he says, "Earl, I'm going to walk with the Lord." And Earl said, "I'd rather you walk with the bases loaded," which... Classic Earl. Somebody opens their heart to him, and he only cares about are we going to score a run on a walk. That was Earl. I have a million Earl stories. It would cover the rest of the podcast for 2 days. That's how enjoyable it was. But again, he taught me so much about the game, stuff that I remember and that I use to this day.